Welcome everyone to your favorite channels. The mid-season draft is here and I'm joined by one of two co-hosts this week. We've got Hayden from the Footy Yarn coming on a bit later to tell us all about the waffle, but my main co-host, Big Dylan Alexander. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. We jumped on last night. We had a bit of fun with some mock drafts, and now we're into the real thing. So as I said last night, we get two opportunities for this. We get the national. This is kind of like the warm-up, isn't it? It's a little bit more difficult to understand what's going on because you got clubs playing across all these different competitions. It's a little bit more rogue, but equally as fun, and maybe even more so because of the fact that it is a bit more random, which I think we'll probably see happen. There's got to be tonight, there's got to be at least one domino where just it causes a shitstorm. I'm waiting for it.
Well, I mean, it is. We were just talking about it off camera. These drafts have probably gone from like promoting a state league player in your system in a token gesture just to fill a hole to where some teams are looking at this almost as a supplement to the AFL national draft as trying to get ahead of it. So there's quite a few teams you can see in that top 10, particularly number 4, who don't have any picks in the national draft of note yet, that may be using this as just trying to get ahead of the game.
Yeah, 100%. Like we talked about it a little bit off air just before, but the fact that, I mean, originally this draft was absolutely set up just to help you with injuries, right? It was those like early retirements, season-ending knee injury type things, and you just want to get somebody, get a body into play. And like the players that you would consider from this year's pool, you're looking at the guys like Kruger and Tomlinson, guys that have played AFL before, and then they can just come in and fill a hole for you. But you do see it now. I think like teams look at those players that have, maybe had an illness, maybe had like a season-ending injury themselves in like their Coates League footy or their Sandful footy or whatever, and they kind of go after those guys. And like you said, if you don't have those national picks, you can kind of use this as a bit of a talent grab, I suppose.
And we have talked about the main draft on both channels, but it is heavily compromised in that top 10, isn't it? There's probably a minimum of 3 players in that top 10 that will be match bid. Could be more with the form of some of them. So for some teams as well, this is going to be really important to just try and get your neck on the line, isn't it? Just get a little bit ahead of that, prepare for that. And you never know. One of these players could become the next Marlon Pickett, Johnny Noble. There's been some big success stories from this mid-season draft in history gone by.
Yeah, and I reckon not even just the mid-season draft. Like you can put in all of those kind of supplementary type drafts, like the rookie draft at the end of the year. You've got the SSP signings. If you take all of those together, then you can get some really good talent in the door for sure. But it's, like I feel like it's the types of players that you find in this mid-season draft. Like you're not necessarily going to get like your really high-end, elite, talented midfielders. You're not going to get those sorts of players. But I think that what teams look for are those kind of discarded talls, small forwards, maybe running halfbacks, that type of player that can come in, fill a role and still has enough talent. I mean, like Sam Davidson, he was in the national last year, but yeah, like 23-year-old, somebody like that who can come in, has AFL traits and they can fulfill a role for you. Be massive.
I agree. And obviously some names that are less talked about. We've got Seek Vlogs here, Oscar Adams and Caleb Lewis. Two players that have been named as potentials. Interesting, is it? Oscar Adams coming from Sandful. Sandful is, I think, one of the forgotten leagues, but from watching State League football, the Sandful probably is the closest in physicality to the AFL. It is incredibly physical. And it does surprise me in the national draft, they don't get as much love. This is probably where you'd go for a mature. If I was a list manager, I'd be maybe looking at this thinking it's a tough league. The physicality aspect helps you out.
For sure. I think they definitely do go for those players. Like who was mentioned there? Oscar Adams and who was the other one?
Oscar Adams and Caleb Lewis.
Caleb Lewis, yeah. 2 players that like a little bit older. Adams is the guy that's been on St Kilda's list, right? Like the tall defender. So Yeah, for sure. I think like it's something that I've tried to get into a little bit through, although like I follow mostly like the under 18 footy, but looking at those different leagues and the way that they play, I think probably the biggest difference, like you mentioned the physicality element, which is massive in the sandful. It's probably like the lacking feature is probably that ball movement and the kicking, where it sort of drops it down a little bit further. I feel like watching waffle football sometimes can be a little bit, it's more tempo, like it's players in the back line like to get a lot of the footy, chip it around, play a little bit more like chess, as opposed to going that really quick direct footy as well. So it's interesting how that works and how that kind of plays into recruiting when you're looking at different players, how they get protected or maybe exposed by that as well. But there's going to be some good ones. I'm thinking across those leagues, like who do you like? Who do you reckon the top prospect is, Pommy, out of all of the guys from sandful footy at the moment? Who's your number one?
Well, we talked about him last week, well, on the other night. Jacob Newton intrigues me. I made that bold claim that if you're looking for that small type guy that potentially could be the next Isaac Rankine, playing through the midfield, playing up forward. I did say Timu before anyone comes at me. I wasn't saying he was a branded Isaac Rankine. He's a knockoff, but look, we all love left footers, don't we? It's a weird thing in football that left footers make you 10 times sexier. It's like having a mullet. And I think he was incredibly unlucky in his draft year, constantly in and out of the side with injury. And then towards the end, he couldn't test, which went against him. But he was a standout in them 4 matches he played. He looked incredibly electric. And when you're averaging just under 3 goals in the sandful, that is, you take notice. He knows where the onion bags are.
Oh yeah, he's like a nuggety little bastard too, isn't he? Like he's got some serious speed and power there. Pounces on anything at ground level, and he's pretty. I think he's 179 centimeters, Newton, and he's pretty good overhead. Like he has some traits that make you think he's a little bit more of that hybrid type. Watch him a little bit closer after we had that chat. And yeah, he's got some traits. I remember him standing out big time in, I think it was the game against the Allies in the national champs, where he just looked inside that forward 50, looked a cut above the rest. And I'm impressed with him. The one that I really like from the sandful that I've been watching a bit over the last couple of days is Ewan McKinley. Linked to Port Adelaide, linked to the Western Bulldogs. He looks like he's got some serious traits as well, some rapid speed, really good goal sense as well, and can be sort of creative in that forward half. Like I saw him hit some passes inside forward 50 that just looked really, really good. And maybe that's a little bit of a point of difference for him over some of these other small forwards like Newton, like Sam Toner. But there's plenty. There's another guy in the sandful. I don't know if you know too much about Van Wyck, Pommy. He's played 2 games this season, the ruck. He just looks like such a likely type AFL ruckman to me, like 203, 204 centimeters, only 20 years of age, really solidly built, very strong at sort of, protecting that space in the contest and just getting it out to his mids. And then he's, from the 2 games that he played, I think he had 20 touches in the first game and then he got injured in the second game. But he's a pretty high volume guy as well, so gets involved in the transition. He's another big one and probably fits that mold, like you said, about the sandful guys just being that like extra physical type players.
You see, I always describe it to people. If you follow European football, if you watch certain leagues in Europe, the Spanish, the Spanish are going to be incredibly technically gifted, play the ball on the ground. If you go to Italy, they're going to do the defense. It's very similar with state league football over here. So sandful, I know it's going to be gritty. It's going to be true, almost old school football. It's going to be get the head over the ball, quite congested football. Waffle, like you said, it's the sexy game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's cultured.
Cultured, yeah. Do you know what I mean? The VFL is kind of like the Premier League. Quick, Hail Mary. It's fascinating how them traits. But when you talk about Van Wyck, he reminds me of that Sydney footballer whose name escapes me, who never played. Do you remember the Supercoach legend?
Oh, not Laddams.
No. He wasn't. He was a defender. Oh, his name's gone out of my head. I remember being huge on him. He was built like a brick shit house there. Will Gould.
Oh, Gould. Yeah.
Because Van Wyck looks like he's 35.
Yeah, he does. He has got a well-lived-in head.
Like, he genuinely looks like he's 35. Like, he's been buying darts since he was 16 years old. Great shout out here from Chris. My boy, James Van S. Very unlucky, I thought, to get delisted by St Kilda. Another reason for me to dislike St Kilda. But a guy that had an opportunity at the Eagles didn't get picked up. Shame about Van Es, because there is no talk of him, but he has been going very well for Port Melbourne this year.
Yeah, for sure. I feel a player like Van Es, though, when they've been cut so abruptly like that, I almost feel like it must be, there might be something a little bit deeper to it. You know what I mean? And AFL clubs, when they see them being cut so suddenly like that, they're going to be like, okay, we probably need to see him almost like work his way back up the ladder a little bit. He's probably going to have to do a couple of seasons at Port Melbourne, actually bank some form. We don't want to like almost like treat him mean to keep him keen, sort of thing.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, like Jesse in chat, good day to you. Yeah, he can't believe you went Sandy Brock over Van Es. Disgrace. PommyInOz royalties, Van Es.
Sandy Brock's been incredible, actually, this season.
He has been very incredible. Grant, Eddie Betts from Sanford. I believe Eddie Betts was drafted. This is going way back. Calder Cannons rings a bell, which would be Victoria. Could be wrong. Wow. Someone needs to fact check that. I could have made that up.
I'm going to have a quick look here, Pommy.
Could have made that up from memory. He's a Calder Cannons boy.
You are correct. Calder Cannons, Templestowe Football Club, Eastern Footy League.
Yeah, look, Pom with ridiculous knowledge that no one needs to know. This is a great question here from Matt. 6-month contracts. Do you think this is something that I always think is a great question? Because if I was a list manager, do you think it helps them be a bit more attractive that you've got 6 months? Kind of means you can delist them at the end of the year. But would you think someone like, say, like a Parfit or an older type player, that's probably the perfect carrot, isn't it, for a list manager to go, if he's rubbish, we can replace him. But 6 months, do what you've got to do. I like the 6-month deals.
100%. I think I probably what I wish it was 6 months, but you could pay them a little bit better, because I feel like what they go on to salary wise is almost, it doesn't give them enough opportunity to actually be a professional athlete in that time. Like the resources that you would have to put in once you actually get into AFL. So I do really like it. I like the carrot, particularly for those guys that are AFL ready. So they've already, like Parfit's already had a shot at AFL. He already sort of understands the rigors, and he can just come in and go, okay, I've got the next 6 months to put my head down and smash this out. I feel like it's a bit more unfair on a younger player that's, you know, first or second year removed from like the talent league or the under 18 comps. They come in, that's a lot, like to make like a big impression when you're a person that's missed the draft anyway in that first 6 months is difficult. So I'd probably rather see those kind of guys on like an 18, and then some of those ex-AFL guys or more mature age guys. I think the 6 months is awesome. Would just like to see it on probably better money.
I agree. And I think Rogue Riot, we talk about this a lot. It's one of the most manipulated drafts, isn't it? Because there will be some clubs there that would be reluctant to take, with their salary cap structure, a longer term deal. But I agree. Like Parfit, we've just talked about him. Eagles' second pick. That could be intriguing, couldn't it? Would they go Parfit? And then when you look down the track, Port Adelaide's final pick, would Parfit be that type of guy that you could just... He's a plug and play, isn't he? And his waffle form is nothing short of ridiculous.
Yeah. And when you look at what West Coast actually struggle with and need at the moment, it's kind of just, it's those midfielders that can just go in and like rack up the pill. And that's something that Parfitt can actually do. He's sort of a more quick feet type midfielder. He's a loose ball guy. Is his quality on the ball like right up there? Obviously not. He's can be a bit of a hack job with the footy. But as far as just being in that midfield, like being next to guys like Harley Reid, they've got Graham in there at the moment, but Graham struggles to find the footy in his own right. So I think as a stopgap, you take like West Coast, they get the top end pick where they get to take Tom McCarthy, which is a talent pick. And then if they can kind of get a stopgap that can sort of help and educate. And I think also like bringing somebody in like that who has had a shot at AFL, missed out, probably is, trying to reinvent himself. Like it's potentially good to have that type of person around the club as well. I think you can consider that too with some of these guys. Like I was even having a look at the options for North and thinking about it and them being heavily linked to someone like a Zach Banch from Werribee. I was thinking, well, they've sort of done that with their pickups like Luke Parker, Caleb Daniel, Jack Darling. They've gone after these premiership players. And although it is only VFL, like Zach Banch has been a part of that really successful Werribee Cup. And I think teams also look at that stuff as well. And particularly with a mid-season draft, they might be actually looking a little bit deeper and going, who is this? Not necessarily just the attributes and the raw talent, but actually who is the person that we're bringing in here as well.
Well, talking about bringing people in, I am proud to be joined by our waffle legend, Hayden from the Footy Yarn. Welcome to the show, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good, boys. How are we?
Good, mate. Good. We were just talking about the Eagles. Suppose perfect person to ask. Their second pick, who do you think the Eagles are going to target? Is they're pretty good at hiding stuff, I always find, the Eagles. They keep their cards close to their chest. Who do you think will be called out with that second pick from the Eagles?
It's a toughie. I mean, the mid-season draft is such a rogue one. You know, those first 3-4 picks are pretty easy. And then after that, there's going to be some real strange characters picked up today that I'm sure all three of us probably haven't heard of. But if you look locally, I think Brandon Parfitt's probably a really good option for a bit of midfield depth. They've tried a lot of different things through the midfield this year. And Parfitt's gone back to the Perth Demons. He's been playing really, really well for them. And he's someone who can come in and probably play this weekend. I'm sure he wouldn't, but he could just add that option for them, let the young guys probably rotate through. And he's still got, 5 to 10 years ahead of him of his best footy, probably, another 5 years of his prime. So I think he'd be a really good option for them, Brandon Parfitt. But there's a lot of young guys throughout WA who they could go for, but I think he's probably the one that I think suits them best.
I agree. I actually watched a game last week of Parfitt, and what blew me away is how fit he looks. Like, just visually, that's something that's probably plagued him for years, but he genuinely, by the eye, looked incredible shape. And if you went with talent, he's probably the closest you get to a guaranteed AFL level footballer in this crop, because his best is incredible.
I was shocked that he got delisted from the Cats. He was having a really good year last year. He had a really strong run of form until he found his way out of that midfield. I was shocked that he's even on a waffle list at all. He's
honestly, I think a lot of clubs could do a lot worse than target someone like Parfitt. I think Parfitt is good to go, and I think that's also a part of it, isn't it? You've got to make sure that there is a purpose behind your picks. If you're just picking, you can't just pick for talent. You've also got to pick for now as well.
This is a bit of a rogue shout, but do you think, like, at all, the picks that they're taking here in McCarthy, and if they do take Parfitt, if they were to do that, do you think it affects their national draft at all? As far as if they take two midfielders tonight, do you think then at the national draft that maybe is an inkling that they might go after someone like a Cooper Duff-Tytler or a Willem Dersma, who's that just a little bit different, as opposed to targeting two mids, which on paper it looks like they need?
Oh, it's an interesting one. I think it depends on where they end up finishing. It looks like they'll probably end up with pick one at this rate. And yeah, I think they'd be silly not to go with Duff-Tytler or Dersma with that one. Duff-Tytler's a great option. But we've also got to consider with their national draft, they're probably only going to have those first two picks, that first pick and maybe a second one. They've got Wes Wally, who's in their academy, who's a phenomenal footballer as a forward midfielder. Kobe Evans as well, phenomenal footballer. I think if he was fit, he'd be getting some first round conversations. And then even later throughout the draft, Tyler Williams is a small forward who's pretty handy, and Charlie Banfield, who we haven't been able to see much of this year so far, as a mid-forward option. They've got a lot of good academy picks, so this draft is almost sort of a write-off for them. I think that first selection will be a really big one for them, and after that, I don't think they'll have much of an impact. So I don't think it'll affect it too much. I think they're probably going to end up taking who they think is the best bloke at pick one if they've got pick one, and from there it'll probably just be academy selections.
They could be in a situation, they'll come to the Eagles, if Oscar Allen chooses to walk, that they could be, that could cause chaos, couldn't it, in the national draft next year, with all the academy, NGA, father-son selections potentially in that first. If people start Carlton as well, depending where they finish, they could have a top 5 selection. That could be the most compromised draft of all time already, could it?
I had a look at it, Pommy, the other day, and with the compromised part of it, like there could be 11, 12, 13 picks inside the top 30. Like it's actually crazy how much compromises in the draft. And then you add that stuff in, like, yeah, if they get that compensation pick for Allen, that just pushes it out even further. So in a draft that probably doesn't it definitely doesn't look as deep as the 2024 draft, I think like there was less compromise last year and the draft was stronger. So I think teams could stomach it. I feel like this draft is going to be that turning point where too many teams actually start to, we've already seen it this week with St Kilda, like with the Gold Coast Academy stuff. Like I feel like it's going to blow up this year.
100%. You know it is. You know it is. Few questions about, and look at this, Teresa, the lovely Teresa, a Collingwood fan, asking about Carlton. I love you, Teresa. Carlton, obviously Carlton in this selection here, it's a very intriguing selection for the Blues because it's probably, you could link us to any player the way my beautiful Blue Boys are going. But who do you, gentlemen, I'll start with you, Dylan. Who do you think my beloved Blues are going to call out pick 4?
Who do I think they're going to call out? I think they're probably going to go for Jacob Newton. I think you're right with that. But I think they should go for Sam Toner. I reckon he's absolute quality. I love the physiological type of Sam Toner. He's that sort of rangy, medium-sized forward, and I think he can like blossom into something a little bit more high-end than say like a Newton or even a McKinley. Some of those more, I probably see them as a little bit more role players, where I see Sam Toner as maybe closer to something that could give you some X factor and some higher upside, albeit it is a mid-season draft and he's come through a particularly different pathway. But I'm a big fan of Sam Toner. Who do I think they're going to call out? I think Jacob Newton or Sam Toner. That's who I'm going with.
Hayden, there's been late links to Archer May. Could Carlton spring the surprise, do you think?
I think that would be a great selection if he can slide through to 4. He's been phenomenal since he's come out west. It is obviously a bit of a weaker competition at times out in WR. I think you tend to get 2 or 3 key forwards who really dominate and often don't get elevated to the next level. There was 2 key forwards who had a stronghold on the waffle for probably 5 years in Tyler Keitel and Ben Sockel, but never looked like getting any further. So it could just be that he's dominating a weaker league. But I think he'd be a phenomenal selection if he could get taken at 4. Newton would be one who'd be a really good pickup. Same with Toner. They're 2 guys who probably just missed out last year as forward options. And I think for Carlton, their forward line has looked a bit flat at times this year, especially in some of the games where they have lost. It's felt like there hasn't been enough of that energy or pressure in there. So maybe bringing in someone like that, even Massimo Razzo from Richmond's VFL would be another one that could probably provide something like that. Or they could just go for whoever they think is the best player available at 4, which would be an interesting one. Oscar Adams is one that's got a lot of really good things being said about him from Glenelg. He was on St Kilda's list as a key defender, and Carlton are probably in the position where they need some young key defenders. I know Harry O'Farrell's coming in, but they've had terrible luck with their injuries to defensive stocks over the past 4 or 5 years. So getting someone like that would probably be really helpful for them.
It'd be interesting because you know what I think is a beautiful thing about Archer May is he had a good Sandy year, which we know how good Sandringham boys are. They just seem to learn the game better than most. But the fact he's moved out interstate, I think is a really appealing thing for a recruiter. It shows genuine maturity, doing what it takes. It would be easy to stay in Victoria and kick goals, but that would appeal to me as a recruiter going, okay, young man, willing to do what it takes to get back in the system and go out of his comfort zone somewhat.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's also copped a lot of praise, or not praise, but a lot of attention in the last, I think, 4 or 5 days, because he's Dermot Brereton's stepson. That's one that I've seen floating around a little bit lately, and I think clubs are going to like something like that, just to know you've got that little bit of pedigree about you, even though it's not a genuine relation. Just to know you've got that sort of a pedigree in your corner, I think clubs would really get around. But he's a big boy as well. There's no doubt that he's big enough to be playing at AFL level. He's near 200 centimetres, so to have him as that backup key forward option, which they've had to throw a few boys around in there. I know Brody Kemp got swung forward, previously having played as a defender, although he's been really good as a key forward. It seems like they could maybe use that key forward depth, which Liam McMahon's also been killing it in there too. So he's one of those players who the past couple of mid-season rookie drafts we've been wondering if he'd get elevated to a senior list, and he hasn't quite yet. And I think, especially for Carlton, if he hasn't yet, I'm not sure why they'd go for him now. But yeah, if they were going to go a key forward, Archer May would probably be a really, really good option if he can still be there at 4. I know North are keen on him at 2, but I haven't seen the last hour, and I'm sure a lot of news has come out in the last hour about who those top 2-3 picks are going to be.
Liam McMahon has been taken by Essendon pick 17 and kicking 4 goals on debut versus Carlton after the bye, written all over him. All over him.
Do you guys see any similarities with Archer May? Is there any similarities with the pathway of like a Jasper Scaife? Was Scaife from WA originally? Yeah,
Scaife was a West Perth boy through and through, and then he was in Freo's NGA. It was a bit of a shock that he didn't get selected. They went for 2 NGA picks ahead of him, Josh Draper, who's turned out brilliant, and Conrad Williams, who never played a game for them and is now at the Perth Demons. But I see what you mean, a big key forward who played in that WA state game. There's been a couple, I think the last 2 mid-season drafts, maybe just last year, there was 2 taken in Jasper Scaife and as a key defender, Jacob Blight. So clearly that WA state game is, something that recruiters put a bit of attention on. And I think Archer May is probably, I'd be shocked if he didn't get drafted through here, because he performed well in that. He's performed well for Subi, and there's a history of players getting taken from that WA game. Michael Selwood, I've seen a couple of people make comments about him. He's another one who, WA boy, Peel Thunder, he was that same draft as Jasper Scaife, but just quite out of the state team. He has been brilliant, just going from strength to strength, playing in a Peel team consistently, where they're obviously aligned with the Dockers. So there's a lot of AFL players who he's holding a halfback position over. So he's been absolutely phenomenal, and someone that a lot of West Australians probably would have thought would have been picked up by now.
Selwood's fascinating, isn't it? Because obviously there is a massive Vic bias with players. We see it in the draft. We see it in this. We know that Tom McCarthy is incredible. Richmond have done a great job with their VFL team, but Selwood isn't far off the traits of McCarthy at all. And it's surprising that everyone has locked away McCarthy, but Selwood looks just as AFL ready, if not more so at times, than his counterpart Tom. So it's fascinating that he hasn't got that kind of hype that Tom has got.
I reckon Oh, sorry, Hayden. You go.
I was just going to say, he did train with West Coast over the off-season, Selwood, so they had their chances. They went with Sandy Brock instead as their trainer they picked up. I think Selwood's probably trained with West Coast the last 2 pre-seasons for stints. So, they've had a really good look at him. And I think if they wanted him, they probably would have had him on their list by now. So sometimes with the clubs, it is just 1 or 2 really small aspects of a player that make them not want to pick him up. And, I feel like the more of the draft I watch, the less I know what it is clubs do or don't see in players. It can be such a small thing that, turns a club off. So they've had a really good look at him. But I see what you're saying. He's definitely got a lot more senior experience and a lot more under the belt and on the resume than Tom McCarthy does.
For me, like having a stab in the dark at that, as far as comparing the two players, like they do play like a pretty similar role. I reckon the thing that would like slightly turn recruiters off Selwood is probably the pace compared to McCarthy. Like doesn't have that top end speed and not quite the running ability to like really test you offensively the way that he runs a ball. Like I feel like that's a big part of Tom McCarthy's game, just to be able to be that like that major ball carrier for you through the midfield. But what he does bring, Selwood, which is massive, is that defensive pressure. Like he just seems to be able to get in and use his competitiveness so much to sort of like get a fist in, get a spoil in, and play that sort of like halfback distributor role, but play it really defensively as well. And I think that will appeal. Like kind of like what I said before, that's why I don't think he'll go as high as McCarthy, but I feel like he still will probably go in this draft.
I think it's fair. A lot of clubs been linked with Selwood. I think everyone's stopped talking to McCarthy because he's pick one. I mean, it would be fascinating if the Eagles throw that curveball and they called out, say, an Archer May. We were talking about it off camera, weren't we, Dylan? Everyone's kind of just guaranteed number one who Eagles take. It'd be fascinating if they called out a different name, because I reckon that would cause chaos down the order.
I feel like there's just been too much mail about that one. And then if you add in the fact that West Coast, they already have quite a lot of key position players that they've recruited and drafted in the last couple of years. Like, I mean, you got Oscar Allen sitting there, could leave. You've got Jake Waterman, though. You've got Job Shanahan. You got Harry Edwards as a key defender as well. Sandy Brock, like we said. So I feel like the list kind of goes on for them with key position players. And then around that, like in recent drafts, they've drafted a lot of sort of hybridy types. Like we were talking about it the other night, Pommy, like Bo Allen, Hutchinson, Jinby. So not sort of those like genuine inside midfielders. So I feel like getting McCarthy, although he is in some ways like he is a little bit of a hybrid, I think with the talent and what he can do for you as like a ball carrier, I think is too good to refuse.
I think you've nailed it. I think you're spot on there. Unfortunately, Shane, no, there has been some list managers that have tried to push that through as one of the first stages. So that might be a watch this space, but unfortunately, you can't trade these picks. No doubt, as the calls for mid-season trade periods, we will have something fascinating. Carlton only have the one pick. Nick Newman has been preferred to stay on the list, but we're minutes away from the first pick. I'm going back a few years here, but do you remember when, I'm trying to think the last time they got pick one wrong, but do you remember it was the Coburg small forward with the dreadlocks? I think it was 2020.
Oh,
not the
Jacob
West,
Edwards. I remember Jacob Edwards getting picked up, and he was a pretty early one. Who's the small forward from Coburg?
Oh, it was like 2023. He had the dreadlocks. I think he was playing for North's VFL team last time I checked. But I remember he was odds on for pick one.
Not Jai Cully.
No, it wasn't Jai Cully. It looked like Jai Cully. Used to play for Coburg, though. Small forward. I remember the day of doing one of these drafts, he was everyone's. Sam Lawson. Cheers, Shane. Sam Lawson was like a lock for pick one, and no one picked him up.
I don't even remember him, Pommy.
Yeah,
I have no recollection of him.
I remember going out in the pouring rain to watch him play a game, and then someone telling me a story about Lawson, and I won't repeat it in case it's libelous, but he was part of the Coburg backroom staff, and yeah, out of nowhere, no one selected him and never been seen again. But I'll tell you what, the kid could play football, but literally he was. I remember Cal Toomey in all of his mock mid-season drafts had him pick one. Draft day came. Sam Lawson never got his name called out.
Unreal.
Yeah, that's the reverse magic of the mid-season draft. You really see some names who get thrown up for the mid-season draft. You know, this guy could be one of the top 2, 3, 4 selections, and then all of a sudden they're not drafted at all. Like the mid-season draft is so wild compared to the national draft. The national draft gets a little bit rogue throughout it. But because it's only 20 picks max in the mid-season, it's just weird pretty much from the get-go. So it happens all the time with selections like that. You think blokes are going to go, and all of a sudden they're not on a list at all, and then you don't hear about them for a single year after that. They just fall off the face of the earth.
I feel like
last year. Sorry,
I was going to say, like, last year, I feel like it was probably someone like an Oscar Smart. Not that he was never sort of said he was going to be the number one player, but he had a really big series of the young guns, which is that sort of rep game. But I feel like potentially recruiters in those kind of games, those rep games, they actually don't take that much of a notice of it, just because it's kind of so fabricated. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of put together. It's very offensive. Players can kind of show off their traits, but it's not like a real game scenario. So they're still going to be looking at more of those like Coates League performances and games that have a little bit more on the line.
I think you nailed it. It'd be interesting as well, because we've seen success, haven't we, of the older guys, and it feels like we've gone. I mentioned this in a video a couple of weeks ago. We've kind of gone away from state league footballers, haven't we? There was like a real en vogue patch, Josh DeLuca, players like that, where the clubs were using this draft to try and get the older players in, ready-bodied. There is a guy that seems to be linked every time, Dom Brew, who hasn't got the love. Any chance can we see of the Brewster making his way to an AFL list?
This one, me, Pommy?
Both of you, yeah. We'll start with you, Dill.
I'm a no. I don't think Dom Brew. I think exactly, like, you hit the nail on the head there. We used to see teams pick up ready-made accumulator-type midfielders, but I think the game's changed significantly in the last 5 years. I don't think a Dom Brew has the athleticism to play AFL in 2025. I just don't think he's got that speed, that high-end sort of bite. He's a little bit of a smaller type midfielder, so physiologically he's not a giant or something. He can come in and run and play like a big-bodied midfielder role. He's quite small, so he'd probably have to go in and play as like a small forward, and then he doesn't have the speed to be able to do that. So it's a no from me, and I'd be very surprised if he got picked up tonight.
Well, as you were talking, Tom McCarthy has officially been selected. It should have updated on your screen as well.
Yep, got it.
As Tom tries to tidy the TBCs up. But Tom McCarthy, no surprise there. Excellent ball user. The rumours are spot on. Good selection by the Eagles. What do you think, Hayden?
Yeah, I think West Coast backline has been real shoddy. They've focused a lot on, winning the ball down there, as all clubs do, but their use of it out of there has just been not really there. You've got someone like Harry Edwards who's pretty solid when it comes to just one-on-one defending, getting the job done, but it's that then rebounding. That's not sure if anyone's seen the stream, but there is someone dressed up as an eagle in there, and that is one of the best things I've ever seen. That is phenomenal.
That's like just come on my screen. That's absolutely incredible. I reckon you're spot on though, Hayden, like what you're saying, because the Eagles have even flirted with playing like a Harley Reid behind the ball to actually help them out with that. So McCarthy's kind of perfect, and I feel like he's so modular. He could probably play anywhere across that sort of like that half back a stoppage sort of player. He can go up to a wing. He could probably even play inside as well. So just such a good pick to be able to get someone of that quality in the mid-season draft. Boys, who are we thinking for number 2? Like, what do we actually put our bets in?
Well, it's just come through now. It's Zach Banch. I really thought Archer May would have been the one. But Banch is.
So, Zach Banch, and do we think he might have manipulated this draft by releasing that very good 55-meter banana video 24 hours before the mid-season draft?
Yeah, they should call the draft off.
Yeah, it's all about timing.
but obviously for those Werribee fans, used to live out in Werribee, so know a few of the boys, very highly rated. He comes to North. It is something different that North usually pick up. Are we excited, Dylan? The Banch dog is a room.
I'm not overly excited. I think the only thing that I can sort of justify this pick is what I said off the top when we were talking earlier. North I feel potentially this is like a personality pick a little bit. I like the fact that he plays for Werribee in a successful team. North have gone down that recruiting model with Parker. I know a VFL premiership is different to an AFL premiership, but he has been a part of a successful development sort of program. And I think maybe he can bring some of that across to North Melbourne. I think he's a good small forward. I feel like there was better even in this mid-season draft crop. Like I sort of liked that little bit of extra bite with someone like a McKinley, a bit of extra size as well, a Toner, somebody like that. But again, maybe where North are at the moment, they didn't want to just go for like pure talent picks, and they more wanted to, Barnes. Dylan hates the bench pick. I don't love it.
Yeah, you couldn't really hide it very well. Harry Ram's gone to Port Adelaide. Not really surprised they've gone with someone local. There's a lot of blokes there for him to pick from.
Yeah, I thought they would have gone McKinley as well. That's interesting.
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it? Because everyone went with Hugh and McKinley. I know we talked about that when we did our mock draft, but the Ram dog, it really opens Carlton's pick 4, doesn't it? Because they have now, everyone they've been linked to is on the board.
Who would you take, Pommy? You got anyone you want here? Who are you taking?
Like, I was a Toner fanboy in the draft, in the real draft, but I have been converted with Newton because he is the opposite of what Carlton do. Like, he is excitement, he is high risk, high reward, and I'd like us to go real bold here and back it in. But Selwood, I wouldn't be allergic to it either. Think great bowl user. We lack so much, so there isn't really a wrong pick other than us bringing in a tall player. That I would be angry if I see Archer May, as good as he is, come out here.
What do you think of the Harry Ram pick? Like the fact that he's definitely more of a project player, Harry Ram, like 200 centimeters, super mobile, but probably not playing. Like, I don't think he's going to come to Port Adelaide and like step into the team instantly. Probably shows you where they're at a little bit, as far as they're almost throwing away this season a little bit, not bringing in someone that can kind of come in and hit the ground running. Flynn Young.
Yeah, we had just a name none of us mentioned.
Wow. Tell you what, Carlton continue the surprise. The Flynn Young, and they've gone close to home. Werribee. They have gone back to Werribee. Good system. The Blues have obviously had a strategic targeted pick here, and this has probably surprised everyone because he's very similar to Carlton's mid-season draftees prior. Played forward, has played down the back as well, played in the midfield, a real versatile player. The Blues surprising everyone here.
I feel bad for the blokes at Werribee who are like, those 10th to 15th picked players every week, not going to get drafted, and they're just losing all their best players every year. Every 6 months, they lose 2 or 3 of their best players to the AFL. It's a good pickup. It's an exciting one. That's what the mid-season draft is, though. Like, it was, as you boys were saying earlier, it was initially about bringing players in who can help your season now, who can come in and make an impact. Like you said, with that Josh DeLuca pick for Carlton years ago, it was someone who could come in and make an impact if you were trying to play finals footy still and actually be a replacement. But I think clubs know there aren't really those players out there now who can come in and be one of the good players in their side. So I think it is just about youth and project players now. As Michael Selwood goes to the Dogs, that's an exciting one. We were talking a lot about him. Great to see him get his opportunity, because just one of those boys who, as I'm sure the others have, but I think because he's from WA, a bit closer to home, who's just had missed his draft and then just continued to improve and work hard year upon year upon year. So it's good to see him finally get his opportunity.
He's the first one for me too. He's the first one outside of McCarthy that I've actually mocked correctly. Selwood to the Dogs.
Well, is he the most doggies player ever? Because this is the kind of how the Dogs play. Selwood is plug and play, isn't he? You can instantly say, I can guarantee you now, we will recap this in 10 years, and Selwood is probably the best player of the crop because of where he's from.
100%, Pommy. I reckon this is an incredible pick. I said it the other night on the stream. The 2 players that I consistently see in that Dogs team that I struggle with are Bramble and Baker across halfback. I reckon he instantly kicks one of those guys out of the team and they're actually a better team for this. So that's exactly what you want to use the mid-season draft for. It's it's a hybrid of a talent pick and a ready-to-play player. I think they've nailed it. I think they've killed it.
It's going to be fascinating because the Bombers now probably every name they wanted, and they have taken Archer May. They are probably the winners of this draft because I don't think they would have been thinking Archer May would slide down this far.
I'm sure they're probably a bit shocked, and they need those tall players. So we can only assume they'll take a ruckman in one of their next 2 or next 3 selections. But yeah, to pick up Archer May, they'd be really happy with. They got Jaden Hunter a year or 2 ago, who was a really great pickup for him until he kept getting injured. So hopefully Archer May can replicate that. Just a key forward taken from WA who's ready to go almost immediately and can make a big impact.
Where do you guys reckon this leaves someone like a Charlie McCartan? Because I thought May would have gone further back or higher up the board. And then the Dons would have taken that most obvious ready-made player, which was Charlie McCartan. Do you think he then falls into the Gold Coast hands, or do you reckon someone like a Collingwood go for that? Or the Collingwood actually stay with their in-house VFL program stuff? It's going to be interesting now what happens there.
Yeah,
I agree.
Collingwood seem to rate their in-house boys, and they've got a lot of guys there. Josh Brown's the one that got mentioned a lot as a midfield option. Rod Ali, who isn't really a Collingwood VFL. He played the 1 game there, but another one that would count. But yeah, apparently Gold Coast are pretty keen on, is Caleb Lewis, was it, who was that key forward option, who's a bit more of an athletic one. So if they go him, I don't see why they would be taking someone like McCartan, but they could take McCartan instead. But that's the thing with these mid-season drafts. Sometimes it is just one selection not going that ruins it for the next 2-3 guys at their position because they just slide down.
They've got Oscar Adams.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, you can take that key forward later on at pick 14 for sure if they still want one. I really like that as a pick.
So that's the direct replacement for Ballard, right? Because he's the one that actually went down. I guess he's really like the plug and play there.
It's a great selection, and it's surprised everyone. But Gold Coast are probably, I was like you with McCartan. I thought he might go earlier. Probably opens up for a later selection for Essendon. But I've got to congratulate Gold Coast. Caleb was a lock to Gold Coast with his first pick. So I wonder if there was maybe a few teams who maybe wanted him. If Essendon were maybe looking at him, it's worked out well for them. They've got the best key forward in this crop. That's kind of really fallen into Gold Coast's hands. I can feel the anger coming from St Kilda's coach. You know, the Nepo babies have managed to snag a ready-made key defender in the mid-season draft.
Oh, that's good. Who we got next? We got Collingwood. I reckon you'd still think that they'd go with maybe a Riley Mason here.
Well, they've gone Rowan Steele. Wow.
Big.
Okay, I've got nothing. I've got no intel.
Yeah, I know he plays for West Perth. Seen him once. I couldn't really tell you much. It was just had the league game on in the background. It's a surprise selection for sure. I couldn't tell you too much about Rowan.
Well, there goes their admitting that they were going to take someone from their They actually said we're going to take someone from our VFL program. I reckon they were just saying that so that, potentially thinking maybe somebody would fade Archer May and let him slide through, thinking that Collingwood were going to take someone from their VFL program. Just putting some bait out there.
I mean, look, they've still got pick 15 to go, so they've got that second chance. But it's like how St Kilda said they were always going to pick someone from Sandringham every draft and then binned that one off and didn't pick anyone from the Sandy Zebs. So wouldn't be the first time an AFL club's lied, certainly around the draft.
Yeah, you know what? We've got to give a shout out to Mitch Woodcock, who's a Perth journalist, who mentioned that the tall wingman Rowan Steele is expected to be taken with their first selection after an impressive opening this year in his waffle campaign. So shout out you being the only person who has said it. But I'm with you guys. Don't know much about him. All I've got here is his data metrics, but 183, 23 years old, averaged just over 20 touches on the wing, and kicking a few goals early in the year. Is this a surprise? Because it doesn't quite suit what we all anticipated Gold Coast and Collingwood wanted.
Clearly not a surprise for Mitch Woodcock. He got onto that one pretty early.
Well, he knew. Jacob Newton has ended up, my boy, at the Eagles. Wow. Eagles double up on a small forward, an exciting one too. Tom McCarthy, Jacob Newton, they sound like ready-made players for now, don't they? They've really double-dipped here. Exciting player. What do we think of that one, Hayden? I know you're a fan.
It's they've had a lot of small forwards come through the doors who probably haven't had the impact they want in terms of their young small forwards. Tyrell Dewar's been inconsistent. Tyler Brockman's not really done it for him. Locke Rawlinson hasn't made a big impact. Noah Long can't really get on the park. So it looks like they're having a crack with another with Jacob Newton, and I like it. Just keep throwing small forwards out there. Eventually one of them's going to work out. So I like the approach. He's someone that was considered pretty likely to get drafted last year. So I like it as an option for him to have that small, speedy, paceful option, just to put a bit of selection pressure on the guys who are in there now to say, you're not just going to get a game week in, week out. We've got another guy who wants your spot. So I like that a lot from the Eagles.
I feel like it's a little bit more bold for West Coast too, right, Pommy? Like the fact that they've gone with that high-end talent of Tom McCarthy, and then instead of going for like a Parfitt, which was that stopgap, they've gone for someone like a Newton, who's probably in that group of 10 or 15 players that were the unluckiest to miss out on the 2024 crop. So, and I think Hayden, I think you're right. Like the fact that West Coast fans always say to me when I pin a small forward on them, they always say that they've got plenty of small forwards, we don't need them, but is the quality actually there? I think Jacob Newton probably elevates that a little bit more just with his top end class.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems you're not got enough room on the board here for that one, Bobby. But
what about Cooper Trembath?
Made
a North player.
He's a big boy, Trembath. He's only like low mid 190s, but just physically size wise, big boy.
Yep. I actually really like this. So they were linked with him because he's playing in their VFL at the moment. He's like you said, Hayden, he's like a 193 probably centimeter sort of intercepting defender. He's a little bit rawer and a little bit like he's probably his ball use isn't the absolute best, but he's a nightmare to play in the air. So he's going to definitely be like a bit of an extra shield across that defense. And his one-on-one stuff is pretty good as well. So I don't mind this pick for North. Banch and Trembath, definitely not what I expected. Sort of pleasantly surprised by that one.
Yeah, I think some key defensive depth as well, or just competition. Sort of like with West Coast, there are other players there for North. Obviously, Logue, Pink's been really good lately. The two Dawsons are in there. But to have another one to create, selection pressure and to come in, we've seen Alistair Clarkson's not afraid to swing the axe on the experienced players if they're not performing. So it'll be exciting to see if we can get a bit of a glimpse of Trembath in the next year. But Ewan McKinley off to Port Adelaide, pick 11.
Well, he finally finds his home where we thought he might go pick 3. They've obviously gone their preferred player 3, but he finds his home at Port where we all thought he'd go. Dylan, you must be happy because that's 2 out of 11 we've got right so far.
It actually is, isn't it? It's that bad. we've got, and number one was dished up to us on an absolute platter.
That's why that's why we can't really count it, but we will.
Yeah, exactly. Ewan McKinley, I've got to be honest, I'm a little bit jealous of this one just because we've gone with a small forward at pick 2, and I probably like McKinley a little bit better. A lot of speed, a lot of power in this guy, and has kicked some incredible goals, like off balance. Just looks like he's got, like, with all the physical traits that he's got, looks like he's one that could really, really easily step up to AFL level and just be really comfortable. So Port have got a beauty, and I feel North have missed out, but we've said that before.
Can I just say the real winners of this draft might be Essendon because they're looking for toll players, and so far as Zach Walker finds his new home up at the Kennel, Essendon right now, probably all their dream targets are literally on the board. So this should be huge. But Zach Walker, Gippsland power defender, that awkward third size interceptor. This looks like Alex Keefe 2.0, doesn't it?
Yeah, so Zach Walker is a beast in the air. Like you can see some of his clips coming up here. Shields the defense really well. I watched him in the Young Guns games. His ball use is questionable. So obviously the Western Bulldogs, they like the athletic profile. He jumps at the ball, a good shielder, but they obviously think that they can bring him in and kind of clean up that ball use and he can be that kind of third defender. Maybe it's a bit of a similar one to Selwood where they kind of see him as that sort of in-between size. He can play on talls, he can play on smalls, and they'll turn him into a little like defensive mongrel type player as opposed to someone that's slick on the ball.
Hayden, do you like this? What do you think Essendon are going to do here? Do you think they're now going to go the ruckman? Are they going to go someone exciting? Where do you see them heading here? Because probably all their targets are on the ball. On the board.
I don't think they're going to have much competition for picking up a ruck, considering Suns, Collingwood, Port to come. They could probably take that ruck at 17, 18. I feel like the majority of footy fans want it to be Braden Crossley. I think we're all really excited about that. Lockie Blackiston's gone to them. So
they've gone that early.
Yeah, which I guess maybe they thought there was a bit of competition for him. But yeah, it looks like that's their ruck, Lockie Blackiston. Great pickup, I guess, from East Fremantle. He's been very strong in the league so far this year in the Waffle. Can't say I've watched him at all this season, but there's been some good competition in the rucks this year. I thought Riley Sprigg probably would have been another one from West Perth who could have been taken as a ruck option, but I think in terms of pure size and ability to make an impact at AFL level this year, Blackiston probably is the one. And at the end of the day, that is really what Essendon need. They don't need a ruckman to develop. They've got Vigo Vicentini, Draper and Nick Bryan are still young. They just need to bring someone in who can make an impact this year. And I guess Blackiston's that man if Goldstein goes down or gets a little tired, which wouldn't be surprised if either of those two things happened.
I reckon he's going to come in and play pretty much straight away, Blackiston. Like I really like this pick. Out of all the rucks that were on the board, this is the guy that he's got that little bit of extra height, like he's 200 plus centimeters. He's a big physical boy and he can run as well. I actually really, really like this. The only thing that surprises me about this, I don't know who else. I'm not sure why he's gone at 13 because I don't think anybody else was going to pick him up, but maybe Essendon. I thought with this pick, they'd probably go with McCartan. But yeah, interesting. I reckon it's a really good pick though. He was my favourite of the rucks.
It does make you think that maybe McCartan won't go in the next three selections if they're not taking him now. Caleb Lewis just going to the Suns now, probably one that we expected to happen. I did see Adams and Lewis be the two boys linked to the Suns when I was reading something today. So clearly those two seem pretty wrapped up pretty early. He's had a pretty good early start to this year, hasn't he, Caleb Lewis? Have you seen him at all too?
Yeah, he played in the Young Gun series as a bit of an overager. He's got a really nice set of hands, like a good, clean marker. And he's pretty good at ground level as well. I think he's maybe not, when you look at the type of forwards that clubs are going to a lot, it's those really combative, not necessarily so much they're looking at like really clean marking players anymore. So he looks maybe a little bit old fashioned in that sense, but nice pair of hands. I guess the Gold Coast, like maybe they just want to bring someone into play for a little bit and not have to play like Reed and Walter in the same team at the moment while they're so young. Just look for that kind of step gap sort of thing at the moment. So I like it. It's interesting how they didn't take him with the first one when everyone had him sort of pinned there. Who are the best players that you guys think now are actually still on the board? Like I'm a bit surprised that no one's taken Sam Toner.
I'm surprised with you. I'm genuinely surprised. I'm also surprised that Collingwood have taken Noah Hose with their next pick.
Yeah, he was a couple drafts ago, I think, Noah House, and just missed out. Big forward from memory from South Australia. I haven't heard that name in a couple of years. Bit of a throwback, that one. Didn't hear it at all in the lead up to this.
It's actually funny, Hayden. Oh, sorry, Pom. He was last mid-season draft. He was actually a big name coming into that one, and then he missed out. So the Pies have just gone 1 year later on him.
He was linked to North a little bit last year, wasn't he?
Yes. Yeah, he was. Yeah, for sure.
I remember doing him in the mid-season draft last year. I remember him doing it, and I remember his draft the year before in the profiles. That is completely Lepich there, isn't it? Because I've noticed Collingwood's last three selections in the mid-season draft last year and the national draft, everyone they've been linked to hasn't actually materialised. So that just shows Lepich has closed the door on any potential leaks up at Collingwood.
We're taking players from our VFL program.
I think he's done well.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's a great selection, but you'd be fuming if you were the boys in that VFL program. Josh Brown was the main one I heard. I think, especially as an ex-West Australian or ex-Waffle player, I was hoping he'd get picked up. But yeah, a bit stiff. A great selection though, nonetheless, for them as a key forward option. We know for years that's been the area where Collingwood have really been struggling for depth as key forward. So hopefully he can be the guy to come in and provide that for them over the long term.
He's got probably the best person to learn off as well, hasn't he? Because I'd say Majocek is one of the greatest guys of maximising his potential. So real good systems to learn off. Young Noah has off of them three big boys as Manny Liddy.
Like selection a lot. My favourite thing about Manny Liddy, great guy. Great player. He was, I think, 2021's draft. He missed out and it's just gone strength to strength. A bit like Michael Selwood has, missed out in a draft and just stayed at his club and continued to improve. But my favourite thing is right now he wears a full white leg sleeve on his, I want to say right knee. And it's just such a different look. Like you see the NBA players have the sleeves over their elbows or over their knees. And I remember having a conversation with someone about this at my local footy club, how no one's doing it in the AFL. I want Manny Liddy to bring that to the league because it looks so sick. That's my favourite thing about this pick. Great selection, midfield depth. The young player is still only 21, 22 and has got a lot of senior footy experience. But, yeah, look out for that leg sleeve. It looks sick.
Fascinating. He had an emergency surgery on an infection on the wound of his knee. That is incredible. A great little bit for you there, Hayden, of why you wear that. But tell you what, mental that he went away after the 2020 national champs. Got some little pom facts here for you. But he shaved 30 seconds off his 2K time trial in 6 months.
Wow.
Massive.
That's
a lot.
He does look, he's one that's really, I think, come into his body. He's not a big guy, but he just looks thinner. Like he looks a lot more toned than he did in his draft year. Oscar Smart, someone we mentioned a little while ago. He is one of the funkiest guys I've ever met doing YouTube videos. He's such a character. So I'm really happy that he's been picked up. But he's really improved from his draft year to when he went to Eston's VFL last year as a pressure forward.
He was someone that me and Dylan talked about a lot in his draft. I remember you liked him as well, Dylan, in his actual national draft year, but finally gets the chance at his VFL. Now he's a senior listed player. Essendon have gone within. Are we excited about this for Essendon?
I'm absolutely loving this. I'm so wrapped for Oscar. I reckon he's a great player. I've seen him in several VFL games over the last couple of years, and like he just plays with that passion. He's sort of a medium forward, like around the mid 180s, has a lot of power, a lot of speed. He can break tackles, loves to lay a tackle. And the one thing you notice about Oscar Smart as just a little detail in his game, when there's those players and they're always, when their team kicks a goal and it's not them, they're the first guy to get around everyone and celebrate. I reckon that's like a big feature in his game.
And our favourite, our boy, Liam McMahon, VFL.
That's a great end to this draft because just as blokes, I love those last three blokes that have been picked up. I've been lucky enough to chat to all of them. As Dill was saying, I think Oscar Smart's greatest attribute is his passion, just how much he loves his team and his teammates and is willing to work hard for them and celebrate every little moment. And Liam McMahon, one of those players who I think everyone knows it by now, got cut from Collingwood and it's just gone strength to strength to strength in the VFL. That's an exciting pickup. I'm stoked to see him get his opportunity.
To be fair, I think Carlton will enjoy that he's there because now Harry Lemmy, who they've put a lot of money into, now is the main man. Something I've been complaining about a lot about Carlton, that they've got a VFL listed AFL player that is playing third forward and he's meant to be the replacement key. But Liam, there's no one who deserves an opportunity like him. A tireless worker, and I can't think of a better protector for Nate Caddy than Liam McMahon. Like, genuinely, if I was a Bombers fan, which I'm definitely not, I would genuinely be stoked because he works so hard for his younger players in the VFL. If he carries that on in the AFL, you've got yourself Oscar and Nate Caddy will love working with Liam McMahon.
Yeah, I love all those Essendon selections. I think 3 forwards is a bit strange for a mid-season draft to see 3 forwards end up getting selected, but I love all those picks. Smart is, I really hope he's going to be someone we see this year. I think having him and Kako in that same forward line could really be scary for a lot of defenders, 2 guys who will just hunt you with everything they have when you've got the ball. And those key forward options are really good, can come in pretty early. And as Dylan said, I wouldn't be surprised if we see Blackiston pretty soon in the piece this season.
So from a statistic point of view, a mid-season draftee in the AFL averages 6.7 games per pick.
That's honestly not shocked. There have been some absolute duds picked up in the mid-season. I think that's, and not that we're going to guess here, but that's one of the sort of fun things about when you look at this list of 18 players. Like, in 4 years' time, maybe 5 of them will still be on an AFL list. Like, you're just thinking about which of these guys are actually going to take this opportunity and run with it. Who's going to really make the most of it and who's just going to disappear in the next year.
Who do you reckon of all of these boys on here that have gone? Who do you reckon's the one that you see fitting into the AFL the best? Maybe that's because of the team that he's gone to, but also like positionally can sort of slot in at AFL level, play well, and sort of be that, I don't know, like early success story.
Selwood, because it's
I agree.
Selwood's a good one. I was thinking him and it's tougher with key positions, but Oscar Adams, I think you see it often in the AFL where, these key position players, when they're 21, 22, 23, that's when they make it to the league as rookies. And I think Callum Wilkie's a perfect example because he got drafted pretty late as a key defender and has been just monumental ever since. So if he could try and emulate a career like that, I think Oscar Adams could really be the pick of this draft.
Can I just say, this is the comment of the year. That is a throwback, Matt Gandolfo. I can see it. Josh Hartnett. Tell you what, that 40 Days and 40 Nights, if you haven't seen it, great movie. But I agree with both of you. I think that there's some talent there. But Tom McCarthy, can we see Tom McCarthy? I think, obviously he's pick 1. But I do think he's going to have a very long career. I would be willing to wager, I think he has the longest career out of all 18.
I mean, he's playing this week, right? Like, he'll be straight into that West Coast side. So in some ways, he has the best opportunity to go there. I just think it's really difficult for a mid-season draftee to go to, like, no offense to West Coast, but right now they're in a bit of my club's exactly the same. So I think I'm in a position to say this, but like, they're a bit of a basket case at the moment. I think it's probably a little bit more advantageous if you're getting drafted. And that's why like the Michael Selwood one works, I think, as maybe could be the early success story because he's going to a club that's in a pretty good position. There's pretty much a spot there for him already, and he can kind of actually make the team a little bit better. They're well coached. The club's been in a pretty good place for like several years. So I feel like that's just the obvious one.
Yeah, I see what you're saying with that. I think Selwood comes in and there's no expectation of him. Pretty much 17 of these blokes will go into their AFL side and have no expectations of them. Tom McCarthy is going to go in, and I think people will know there's a mid-season pick, but you look at Jai Cully, Ryan Marrick, Jack Hutchinson. There was a little bit of, I don't know if you guys saw it over East, but in WA there was expectation that these guys would come in and be able to make an impact and play in that first team regularly and become a contributor to that side. And it's going to be tough because he's going to go into a very inexperienced backline. Jeremy McGovern isn't down there, so you got Tom Cole's got the experience. Duggan, if he's back there, has got the experience. But otherwise, there's a lot of guys. So Jinby, this is his first full season in defence. Marek, this is his season in defence. Harry Edwards, only just got some wins on the board, so it's a very shaky backline that he's going to be going into. So it'll be tough, but as you said, he's definitely got the most opportunity out of anyone in this list.
And Jacob Newton, really exciting. A few people asking, King Kriller asking about him, an absolute goal machine. And you can only think him learning off someone like Liam Ryan, who himself likes to do the unthinkable. But in that system that really, I feel like they lack a genuine guy that is hard at it. And Jacob Newton does chase people like he owes them money. He could suit it. He will slot in, I think, quite early for the Eagles. I think the Eagles will look at this and go, we've absolutely killed it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's someone who, they're trialing everyone this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if Newton gets, a run of 3 or 4 games this year to see how he goes. And like you said, I think it'd be awesome for him to learn off Liam Ryan. But there is just a lot of the experienced players who look a bit disinterested when you watch West Coast some games this year. So hopefully these 2 young guys can add a bit of a fresh spark to that side as well.
He's pretty clinical as well, Jacob Newton. So a team like West Coast, again, they're probably getting limited entries. And he's not going to get like a really difficult defender to play on most weeks. So he's going to be able to get like a few opportunities to score. And I think he's a guy that can, a bit of a fox in the box, can kind of take those opportunities and smack them through. So I love it. I reckon West Coast did really well. I'm just like looking through, is there anyone, Pommy, for you that you kind of go, this isn't ideal?
I think, obviously, I'm going to say Carlton taking Flynn Young. I think it's a surprise. No links to him at all. A guy that is very similar to what Carlton have prioritised. Elite winger, started life in his draft year as a winger, converted to a small forward. The Southport game does ring out because from memory, I think he kicked like a goal from like 78 metres or something. I remember that game sticks out in my brain against Southport. So he's got a long kick on him. He's left-footed. He does suit the bill of Carlton. To answer people's question, is he injured? That usually is a Carlton trait. We like an injured player. But, I mean, I am pleased to confirm that he has since 2024, start of that, he's played every game he's been available for. So that is kind of exciting. But he suits the profile. But I think that is surprising to me that the Blues haven't looked at like a Jacob Newton, which is a dire need. This feels kind of a little bit like a Matt Cottrell. Makes me think of Carlton doing a little bit of a switcheroo, changeroo, protecting themselves. We know Elijah Hollands has had some difficulties since he's traded over. Is this Carlton really trying to double back and make sure they've got the protection? Because they seem to have drafted this player 4 or 5 times, in my opinion.
Do you think it's like not necessarily looking at what we need and it's more kind of saying it's a mid-season draft, we've got pick 4, we want to make sure the guy that we pick has all of the fundamental traits to be able to make it in the AFL first and foremost, and they see Flynn Young as having that, like you said, with the running ability. He's good in big games. He sort of ticks a lot of boxes, like mentally as well. And they've just kind of gone down that road rather than going, okay, like what do we need? We need a small forward. We need a halfback distributor. Well, yeah, okay, but we're not going to get a high-end distributor in the mid-season draft anyway, like a really, really, really top-end player that we actually need. So let's target that in free agency or in the national draft, and we'll take this guy because at least similar to last year with Cooper Lord, it was a pretty low upside but high floor type pickup.
I feel like this is a safe pick for the Blues. So I think you're right. I feel like he's played just about every position. Like started life as a winger, started his career up at Werribee when he first was there, down in the back line, now converted as that high half forward hybrid. It suits all of Carlton's things. They love runners, don't they? It just feels to me, when you've got no picks next year, I would have been looking at someone like Newton, where if you look at why Newton's come, aging small forwards, X factor. I would have liked to have seen Carlton do that, but it does suit what Carlton have always selected. They prioritise athletes. It seems to be a huge thing.
I get that, like you're saying, with you would have preferred the profile of them trying to kind of hack the draft a little bit. Like Newton was the pick where one of the better players that didn't get picked up last year, where they've gone the more like the bankable commodity. Do you guys think overall, like looking at this as a pool, there's a bit of a trend there of guys that have sort of been up for draft in recent years and not like missing out and not getting picked up, and then sort of seeing how they've responded to that? So rather than going for the like Toner's missed out, for example, has sort of come from that different pathway, but he's really only been on draft raiders since the national last year with how he shot up. These guys are all guys that have been considered before, or at least most of them have been sort of considered before. They haven't really come from nowhere.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. They've all missed several drafts. You know, they've all, I mean, other than, I think Newton is probably the one that sticks out to me, but they've all missed several drafts, or they've had to have a lot of time in senior state league footy before getting this opportunity, where Toner probably just popped up towards the back end of that draft, just missed out. You do hear it where clubs do sometimes say, you know, if they've got a player they like, but they're not sold on him, let's see how he responds. How can he go of his own accord? Because, you know, it's easy to improve when you've got, you know, an AFL facility there, AFL coaches there telling you what to do. But, you know, can you find it within yourself to continue to improve? And those players who do are probably going to find it a lot easier when they're on an AFL list. You look at someone like Lawson Humphreys, how much he utilised being on an AFL list. The second he got on there, he improved so much. He was already a terrific player, but you know, a lot of these players would be seen in the same light as him. You know, you miss out on a few drafts, you stick around at your state league side, and you know, you continue to improve. Let's see how you go, you know, on an AFL list. And most of these guys, I think, other than probably Blackiston, are guys, and maybe McMahon, are guys who are going to have time to develop at their club. On Flynn Young, I think it's just a genuine depth pick who put him in any third of the grounds if you've got an injury and someone you need to cover, which it's a smart move for a mid-season draft, and it's a guy who could potentially develop as well. So a bit of a win-win there for Carlton.
It's definitely a safe pick. Like, I'm just going through a few now just off the top of my head, but you've got guys like Oscar Smart missed a couple of drafts, Noah Howes missed a couple of drafts, Manny Liddy's probably in that same grouping. I know Cooper Trembath was like a big candidate last year for the mid-season draft as well, so he's missed a couple himself. And then the guys that a lot of people had high hopes on, like I mentioned Toner, but also Rasso, particularly like a lot of Richmond fans were super keen on him, but they're just out of the draft picture, you know what I mean? Like Rasso's only 1 year removed. Gus Papau was another one, Zach Harding, Cooper Herbert. So those guys seem to have been faded for whatever reason. So it's almost like the recruiters are saying to them, it's on you now. Like, you've got to put in a season or two playing VFL footy and see how you go sort of grafting to get back to the top.
Do you feel with like players like Sam Turner, what went massively against him was, I watched the North Melbourne VFL game and the no goals, he did look goal shy. He still looked really raw in that game against men.
Yep.
Do you feel like that probably went against him? Because when you look at these guys here, all of them have had very good recent state league form at the very least. So like Flynn Young, I think the game just before he kicked 2 or 3 goals. So recently, Selwood had a real strong last couple of games. All these players in recent times, Jacob Newton, I think it was 3 goals last week. These last game he played, they've really hit the straps at the right age. Because I feel like Turner might be someone that we see taken in this year's national draft, you know, when it's kind of been so convoluted with picks. I think you might see him be taken like a pick 60, pick 70, someone take him then.
Yeah, I think you make a good point. Like, it's definitely what they've looked at for this draft for safety. Like, they've gone for those, you mentioned, like good state league form, but also like have performed well in like pretty big moments for their teams as well, like big game players, that sort of thing. I feel like this is a little bit of a repeat of the national draft for me, as a person assessing talent. Like I was really big on Jasper Alga in the national draft. I remember saying he'll be the next guy picked from about pick 25 onwards, and he ended up going like super, super late. I can't remember what it was in the end, in the 60s probably.
Yeah.
I feel like Tone is a little bit of a similar type to Jasper Alga, those skinny hybrid forwards who probably are, they're going to need like a little bit more development than the average draftee. There is high upside to them because of the fact that they're ground level players and aerial players. But I guess it's like you don't have to, like you can almost have a look at him, wait till he gets embedded into the VFL a little bit, see if he can sort of like put on a bit more muscle and if his physicality is up to it. And like you said, Pommy, like he can watch if he can sort of bring that goal output, what you're really going to need. And that's when they'll look at him. Because I feel like that's 2 drafts in a row now where I've been waiting for this guy to get picked up, and they're really similar players.
Sometimes goes against you, doesn't it? It does. I mean, some of the questions coming from chat, which I think are really good, and I'll ask you both. No, obviously, defenders was very high up on Essendon's priority. Archer May, key forward. They've taken Oscar Smart, as we know, is that small, medium-sized guy. Liam McMahon, key forward, and then Blackiston, we know, ruck. Is this a case of that they're going to look within, maybe trial one of these guys down back? We know, I see Braden, who's asking, will he go down back, Liam McMahon? Or is this something that they're just going, let's cover the forward? That is a real lack of depth position outside of Peter Wright and Nate Caddy with the indecisions of injuries. Have they just tried to double up on that and say, look, we've got someone in mind in the draft or in free agency?
I think it'd have to be free agency because their draft, they're another one who are pretty compromised with 2 potential first rounders in their academy in Adam Swade and Hussein Al-Ashkar. At the same time, it'd be silly for them to bank on a key defender in the national drafts if they liked one in this draft. So I think it's probably more just a matter of they didn't like the guys available in this draft. They didn't rate them. I mean, you look on that list, Cooper Trembath, Oscar Adams, Harry Ram as those tall defensive options, even Zach Walker. They're probably just guys that, pretty simply Essendon didn't seem to rate or think could come into that side and, make an impact. So it could be that they like someone in this draft. It could just be that they didn't like what they saw and they were willing to, play the patient game and, they rate the guys that they've got in this one. And I think as well, taking those 2 key forwards, as you said, it's smart. It's 2 guys who can come in, make an impact. We know what Peter Wright's like. He misses games every year. Nate Caddy can't do it on his own. So to bring 2 guys in like that, I think is pretty smart for Essendon.
I feel like as well, Hayden, like it kind of shows where Essendon are at as well, because probably the key defensive options that were in this mid-season draft were like the ready-to-play guys, right? Like everyone was looking at McCartan, they were looking at Kruger, even Tomlinson, these types of players. And it kind of shows that Essendon have gone into this draft and gone, well, we don't really want to have one of those guys sitting on our list in, a couple of years' time. I know they can cut him if they want to, but it's a little bit more difficult doing that. So they're like, we want to bring in these guys that we actually think can, they're probably not all going to work, all 4 of them, but they can bring in more talent that actually helps them in that sort of like next push as well. So it's a bit more of a rebuilding phase for me. Yeah,
and when you consider Louis Hayes and Zach Reid, how they've been able to come on this year and get opportunities. Obviously, Hayes, it didn't really work out for him in terms of the injury front, but the fact that they're now in a position to give young players in that role a go, I think is really important for them, and to see how they can handle that extra pressure. But yeah, I'm really excited by the selections they had and not overly shocked they didn't pick a key defender. I think, a lot of those guys probably, everyone who's been selected, all of these 18 selections, they're in the mid-season draft because they've got 1 or 2 pretty serious flaws in their game. If it wasn't for that, they would have been taken in a national draft. So every single one's a risk. And I think with key position players, when you've got those big flaws, they're probably critiqued a little bit harsher than it is for other players. So maybe they just, they didn't like what they saw and they want to have a crack at someone in the national draft too. Maybe they consider having less flaws than, the key position players available to them here.
I've got just one thing to ask. I've just sort of thought about it with Essendon, with Oscar Smart. One sort of further thing that surprised me, he wasn't really on the radar or linked that much anyway in the lead up, but do you think he and Archie Wicks, like that's 2 very, very similar players there that they've gone after. Like, that'll be interesting to sort of see them almost like, I feel like, fight it out for that kind of medium forward position.
Yeah, two Bendigo boys as well, so I'm sure they would have had a bit to do with each other. I wonder if they get along well. I mean, I'm sure they probably have, but yeah, I could say that. I think Smart is probably a bit more, in my eyes, is a bit more of that genuine forward who's going to be there to benefit the team. Not to say that Dayweeks isn't, but I think at his best, Archer Dayweeks is someone who, you know, creates unreal opportunities for the team, is that guy for the team, whereas Smart's probably the one who's doing the selfless things for that guy. So I think early days there'll definitely be a bit of selection pressure between the two of them to play that role, and Smart's probably better suited to it for now. But I think in terms of development, there's definitely a much higher ceiling on Dayweeks. Dayweeks has a terrifically high ceiling, so I think they'll end up different players if, you know, five-ish years from now they're still both on Essendon's list. But you're dead right. I think this first year or two where they're both on there, they're going to be competing for a pretty similar spot on that side.
I'm genuinely excited for Essendon with this selection because Archer Dayweeks spending a lot of time with Fiona from Bombers Banter. She knew I was huge on Archer Dayweeks. He was one of my, I wish Carlton would pick him up as a future backup for Patrick Cripps. And I remember telling her he's got thug in him. He's got a real. He looks like he's definitely robbed a few Mars bars as a kid and got away with it. And when you watch him play for Essendon's VFL, he has genuinely gone to a more defensive role, used his body, where Oscar's still in that sexy finish it off phase. I could see these two genuinely, Oscar and Archer, if they can find that Bendigo form they had as kids together, that synergy, you have got them that modern day half forward mid rotation that every club now has. So I'm really excited to see how them two operate long term because, as Hayden says, they've got previous together. They've formed really well in the VFL. This could be something they've seen long term because I think that's something Essendon don't have, that extra mid rotation that can play forward. They've forced it with injuries, but these two naturally do that as their bread and butter.
Well, I feel the one that sort of they would have expected to be that guy, right, was like Archie Perkins. He was sort of the next one, and he sort of just hasn't really gone to that level. But you're starting to see now with these last couple of drafts, like that forward line is going to look so different for Essendon in the next 2 to 3 years. Like Caddy's come in as the key, Kako's come in. They're going to have Swade and El Ashkar, like you said, Hayden. Now Oscar Smart goes into there as well. You've got Archer Dayweeks. It's just going to look completely different. Archer maybe he's the next sort of like key forward to go next to Caddy, like you said. So it's cool. It's interesting.
They're definitely developing one of the more exciting forward lines. There's just a lot of guys there who are highlight reel guys, and the key forwards they're bringing in. You've got 2 meter Peter there, but Archer May's just as tall. You're going to have another big option there for him, and Liam McMahon as well, someone with that experience, and as Pommy said, just someone who looks after his younger players in the VFL. I think to have someone like that when you are developing such a young, exciting forward line who clubs are probably going to hate because there's a lot of small, fast guys who are going to draw a few free kicks. Having those guys in there who are willing to be the protectors, willing to be the big bodies around them. Yeah, you're dead right. It's a very fresh-looking forward line, but a really exciting one when you put it like that.
Stewson, they can do. Cooper Lord has been nominated for the Rising Star. So, yes, mid-season, as long as they fall in the age category, they'll be fine. So, from looking at that off the top of my head, I think only Blackiston is too old to be eligible for the Rising Star.
Maybe. Is 24 the Rising Star?
Yeah.
23? Well, Blackiston,
I think it's 24 of this year if you're not 24 till September.
I'm pretty sure you did right. I think all those boys are under 24. There's maybe 1 or 2 23-year-olds in there, but it'd take a big effort to win the Rising Star from here.
Yeah.
Hey, tell you what, Liam McMahon, his first game against Carlton when he has his 4-goal game, and he gives it a chest bump in front of the Essendon faithful. Don't worry, he'll put his head. But real interesting here when we look at these selections because they've really focused forward centre of the ball, haven't they? Which is traditionally the success of the mid-season draft. Mid-forward, they seem to really flourish. Like you've got Carlton have taken a winger, small forward. You've got McCarthy, half-back. He's probably one of the few defenders, but the rest front and centre. I do want to talk about, though, Caleb Lewis. For those who watch my content, I bore you all about intrinsic learning and learning off someone similar. Caleb Lewis must be the perfect foil for Ben King. And they must have seen something in all the traits Ben King's good at. You'd say that's what Caleb Lewis has to really refine. That could be a smoky long-term investment because they've obviously wanted him. People thought he'd go pick 7. He's gone a little bit further than that. That could be exciting.
I'll sort of throw a question back here at that, Pommy, and that is that, like, with Caleb Lewis, I sort of referenced it a little bit before, but do you think with that forward line, how young it's been with Walter and Reed, do you think someone like a Caleb Lewis, although he is still pretty young, do you think he can potentially like push out an Ethan Reed? They can maybe go with Jed Walter as kind of like a second ruck forward, like rotating. So kind of get a little bit smaller in the meantime, strengthen their ruck position because Reed's been sort of playing that. They can kind of almost get rid of Reed for the moment just so they have a little bit more experience in that forward line, because I feel like even for Gold Coast, they've surprised themselves a little bit with how well they're doing this season. And they're probably starting to think to themselves, well, the way that we're playing, we've got the game in hand, we could be pushing for a top 4 position. So it becomes a little bit more, they almost change in season as far as like we're in a developmental stage, but we probably think we can win this thing.
Call me high, but you know who I see in Caleb Lewis. I think you're spot on with your synopsis that they're trying to add the depth. But I look at Caleb Lewis playing down back, playing forward. I see Dimmer thinking, can I turn him into my Josh Caddy? A little bit of a taller guy. A guy that is that 23rd player on the list, can play tall wingman, can slot in down the back, slot forward. Real versatile player. Richmond's great teams have that versatile player, and I don't think they have it on the list. And I can see Caleb Lewis. He's a freak, an athletic freak. You know, like his mum fed him radiation and broccoli the way he plays the game. I could see him being that type of player for Gold Coast long term, both ends of the ground, being a little bit of an excitement factor.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think it is definitely something they lack, that versatile key position player. They've got the rucks who can play anywhere. Mac Andrews, that versatile player, but he's a little too good to be that versatile player. You know, you sort of just want him to find a position and stay there. So I could see that. We know with a lot of positions, you know, Dim has publicly said that he's, you know, trying to, you know, not replicate, but replicate some of those players he had at Richmond. And I think you're dead right. Caleb Lewis could absolutely be one of those who athletic key position, going to have some versatility. And I think as well, being someone who comes in a mid-season draft, if you can play any position, you've got to take your opportunity wherever you get it. And, you know, all players are going to be like that, of course, but you think about someone like Jed Walter or Ethan Reed, they're probably going to be a bit more apprehensive to trying to become a versatile player, as someone like Caleb Lewis would be, you know, just getting his chance like this. He'd probably be really open to playing that very selfless role and being someone a bit versatile. So I could see it, absolutely.
My mate, Matt Lang. Unfortunately, Liam Stocker didn't get taken, who is the original next Luke Hodge. If you're going to hold a gun to my head, next Luke Hodge. Michael Selwood.
I was going to say,
Michael
Pommy.
Selwood will be the next Hodge. Oh, yeah.
That's a good shout.
One. Well, Dylan, I'd be a miss. Cooper Trembath, massive surprise there. No links to him. Zach Banch, are you happy with your ruse?
Am I happy with my
You looked
ruse?
real happy with the Zach Banch selection. the look on your face, you looked, super stoked.
I don't know like what you guys are like with this, but I always need some time to sort of dissect it and like feel how I don't hate the fact that we took a small forward, because I've said this to Pommy a ton. Like, we have tons of midfielders and we end up playing those like modern sort of high half forward modular roles with like mids who don't really know how to play the role as well. And they're not as, the way that they play isn't as selfless. It's not as defensive. And then when they get opportunities inside forward 50, they're not as clutch as some of the best kind of high forwards in the comp. Banch can probably come in and sort of play that role. So I suppose on that level, but I actually thought in this mid-season draft there were better options than Banch. Like I talked about Ewan McKinley, thought he was probably a better option. If you wanted, again, like that really high-end upside sort of player, Sam Toner, I would have liked, but we kind of talked about him. I do think McKinley and Banch are more of that system type. And then the other one you could probably throw in there too is Flynn Young, who Carlton took. Like he's kind of that system guy as well. Maybe not the same quality as someone like a McKinley, I wouldn't have thought. But that one, yeah, it is what it is. It's not my favorite pick. I probably would have preferred us to go for the key position forward, like go for an Archer May here. We still lack depth in that position. We lack a little bit of quality. Maybe the recruiters have looked at the emergence of Finbar Maley and kind of gone, maybe we don't actually need that position as much as we did when we recruited Jack Darling. Bit of a, yeah. So I'll say it's okay, that one. Cooper Trembath, I think this one's good. Again, we don't have a lot of those sort of medium hybridy type defenders. I think one of our struggle areas this season has been playing players like a Luke McDonald, playing players like a Darcy Tucker, sort of off the back of the stoppage, being that sort of medium-y type defender. Jackson Archer does a job. So Trembath's probably a plug-and-play guy that can come in and play on those unusual type forwards, those hybridy type forwards. So I like it. He's good in the air. He's a big body, so he can probably play a little bit taller than what he is. I like him as a pick. I almost wish we just had a double down with the key position players. I think there's probably a little bit more value in that than going for these like ready-made sort of structural forwards like Banch is. But that's it. If you're a North supporter, you know to be disappointed in these drafts, as Pommy knows as well. So it is what it is.
Yeah, it's not been a good run for North in these drafts. I think Callum Dawson, in my mind, is the only one that's actually come any good, which I really rate Callum Dawson. But you think of Geordie Payne, we haven't really seen much of yet. Jacob Edwards is probably the greatest mid-season draft disappointment of all time. He was so hyped going in and came of nothing. Has North gotten anyone else in the mid-season?
Who was the one you just mentioned after Geordie Payne?
Jacob Edwards.
Yeah, I was thinking of him. Yeah, he's the other one that I can think of. I'm trying to think who else we took. Oh, we took Teakle last year.
He's been solid.
Yeah, as that just kind of ready-made key. Yeah, just depth like that. So that sort of player we've picked up occasionally, and it's been all right. But yeah, I don't think we've had any great success stories. I think Payne was that kind of player where he was a really good ball winner, someone that could win contests, but like he lacks a little bit of quality on the ball, which does start to hold you back a bit at AFL level. But yeah, overall, I can sort of see what they're trying to do, but they somehow always leave a little bit of disappointment in the mouth.
Yeah, Hanson Jr. just got mentioned. He's actually been a terrific one. I really rated his development. He's been sensational since he's come in. I'm a big Ronnie Hanson Jr. fan.
Yep. Makes you a better footballer if you've got JR next to your name as well. Like if your dad's just Control-C, Control-V to his name, you're always going to be good.
It's a bit of pressure, but absolutely. I think maybe a lot of fathers now have got to be starting to think about that.
Yeah, it's a cheat code. But I mean, we've got to talk about probably the surprise before we finish. Pies literally have done the old Dusty here. They've proper Ned Kelly this one, kept it under wraps. Cloak and dagger. Obviously, Ron Steele was the surprise mature age player known for his endurance and tackling. When you look at his profile, he is a fly type player. But when we talk about our boy Noah, we know we talked about him in drafts previous. This guy here, known for his aerial prowess, known as a system-first footballer. Collingwood have this brilliant habit of taking a player not on talent, but on a soldier mentality, will follow it. And if you were going to put money on two players that will make it, it would be whoever Collingwood select. They've surprised everyone, having said the VFL was where they're going, but they've done incredibly well here. And are we excited about these? Because I've just got a feeling that Noah will be an incredible footballer for Collingwood Football Club.
Yeah, I think you're right on the soldier mentality front, bringing these guys in who are willing to just play their role. There was talk earlier this year, I think Cal Toomey wrote an article of how clubs are just looking for more of those soldiers. You've got your top 5-10 blokes, so you're going to pay a lot of money. And I think for Collingwood, as much as he's going to want to stay at that club, Nick Dacos is going to be worth a lot of money. They're probably going to have some other young guys that they want to build around Dacos who are going to be worth a lot of money. So it's important for them to get these picks right with someone like Noah Howe's, Rowan Steele. The high-end youth is there for Collingwood. So getting those players who can come in and play a role around them. And, they've shown key forward for a lot of clubs is, the be-all and end-all of, forward movement. They want that big key forward who's competing regularly for Coleman medals. Collingwood don't really seem to care about that. They just like having a system, that players like Lockie Schultz, who hasn't entirely come on, but terrific player. They love Jamie Elliott as a forward option. Brody Myercheck's obviously been terrific for them. They've had a lot of blokes rotating through that forward line. Bo McCreary's been super important to them. So, I think Howes can come in, be that tall option, but not have to be a number one key forward, which is, a bit of a luxury for tall forwards in the AFL these days.
It is. I agree with you. I think Collingwood as well booked that trend, don't they? You don't need superstar key forwards. System comes first. And I always make the joke, even though I'm a Carlton fan, I'm pretty sure Fly could find a way to make me work at key forward. But I agree with J-Dub here. Rowan Steele, there's some movies that play music over certain scenes on the hi-hat section of keyboards that I'm pretty sure in the 80s they were very hairy, called Rowan Steele. One of them films most famously being Debbie Does Dallas. I'm pretty sure Rowan Steele was in that movie, but Google that one later, chat. But before we finish, give me your pick of the draft. Dylan, I'll start with you. Pick of the draft. Who do you think is the pick?
Low-hanging fruit here for me, I'd say Michael Selwood, but I feel like that feels like a really, really obvious choice. So I'll go with, I really like Ewan McKinlay to Port Adelaide. I think I like the destination. We kind of didn't even actually touch on the fact that Port Adelaide went full South Australian here as well, just as another point. But McKinlay, I just think of those small forward options, I just feel like he's got the most sort of high-end potential as that higher forward system type player out of like Banch and these guys. So I really think they did well there to get him with their second pick and then be able to get a quality tall like Harry Ram. I think they just sort of juxtaposed that really well. So Selwood into McKinlay for me.
Yeah, Selwood does seem the obvious one. He's one we've all sort of got around. I wasn't really sure if we were going to do that because not to claim my OG ticket, but I've loved Michael Selwood. I remember we were both 18 at the same time, and I ran into him out the line of a nightclub, and I'd just taken my notes that morning of the Peel Thunder vs Perth game, and I saw him, and I was showing him my notes because I was like, "You're good. Like you can get there. I really rate you." So
I love you.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think he was a bit excited as well because, in those days I was doing a lot of WA videos. So it was just a bit of excitement out the line of a grubby little nightclub. So I'm excited about that one. Matty Liddy's another one I'm really excited for. I think it looks like Port Adelaide want their big three mids, maybe not so much Butters, but definitely Horn, Francis and Rosie to be a bit more versatile, to be playing in other positions, which I like. It's sort of the trend these days to have your mids be able to play, outside of the midfield a lot of the time. So Matty Liddy can be someone who can come in and, play a really strong role for him. So I could see him being the pick of the draft, or someone I've mentioned already, Oscar Adams. Gold Coast did really well with picking up Sam Collins as someone who had a chance at AFL level, got delisted, and has really come into his own since. So I could see Oscar Adams being a pretty similar story here for the Suns.
Mate, I love it. And I love the fact you met someone outside of a nightclub. Like, obviously now Selwood is going to have the benefit of Rebs here in Victoria if he wants a dingy nightclub. So that is the... Honestly, if you are a professional footballer, Rebs is the start of every Reddit story about an AFL footballer. Yeah. It's always Rebs.
I won't say who, but I took 3. I knew one of the boys closely, knew one of the other ones, never met the other one. 3 North Melbourne players to Revs for their first time. They all were like, yeah, we've never been to Revs before. So I was like, all right, let's go. We walked up those, 700-meter stairs, the big incline. You're doing the 1,000 steps to get there. We're all shocked when they have to pay $40 to get in. And I think they lasted 5 minutes in there before they said, nah, this is the worst place I've ever been to in my life. Let's go. So the current generation clearly just can't hack a bit of Revs these days. But it's a terrible place. If Michael Selwood did happen to be watching this, I couldn't recommend anywhere less than Revs.
It's a Victorian institution. I mean, if a Pom knows how good Revs is, hey, look, I like my bars with an element of a chance of getting hepatitis just by walking in. How I like to drink. But you know what? I'm going to make Dylan happy here. My player of this draft, Cooper Trembath, I think an interceptor that can hit a target. When I look at North, I love Charlie Comden, but that guy can't hit a cow's ass with a banjo. Like Cooper Trembath,
Totally
he has got laser-like kicking ability. I remember in his draft so clearly as well. I remember writing he's like Audi Jacob Wheater in with his ability to attack the ball in the air and hit targets. So I think if I had to give you a player with them traits, if you can look after him, I think that is a huge pick, because when I look at your team, midfield is grouse, wins all the hard ball. The problem is you don't do anything with it. So I think that having that intercept defender with the ability to get it in the middle could be brilliant. I love that pick for you.
For sure. And I feel like the fact that he's playing with our VFL team kind of gives you the impression that they've done more homework on him as well. So they sort of know what he can become. It's just it's an unusual pick for us, going for that kind of left field key position style player. So I love it. I actually really love that one. I'm less impressed with the bench one, but maybe I'll come around when I see him play.
I thought Pommy was going to say bench as the pick, just to I don't know what he was going to try and achieve there, but I thought he was maybe just trying to cheer you up a little bit. So I thought he would be going for that bench selection.
Can I actually just say one other selection I really like too is that Essendon went for Blackiston. I reckon that's a great of all of those rucks. I reckon they made the right call there.
I'm a bit flat it wasn't Braden Crossley. I think he's just sort of like Dom Brew, one of those players you just want to see back on a list. WA had one, Jai Bolton, for a few years in those early mid-season drafts. We just wanted him back on a list, wanted him to, because he keeps dominating state leagues. But I mean, you look at it, Blackiston's the only one over 23 years of age there. So it's become very apparent what the goal is with this mid-season draft. It's not about picking blokes who are going to come in and make a big impact at your club now. It's about guys who maybe can, but are probably going to need to develop and become players in your side in the next 3 years.
Do you feel Blackiston is a selection because people thought it was going to be Crossley, and I love Crossley, cult hero, but Crossley is probably the same as Goldstein, immobile, big body, where Blackiston is probably the closest they've got to Sam Draper because he is mobile, he is athletic, it allows them to still play the system that is the plan in 6 months, for 6 months.
I actually think with this, Pommy, like I touched on it the other night, I think the modern sort of archetype for the ruck is it's everything that you said. So it's like it's a big kind of solid body. It's also athletic. Like it's got to be able to run. It's got to be able to spread. And probably the number one thing with a ruck that they're looking for is just a competitive bastard. And I feel like he had all of that. And he also had like a little bit of extra height on the other guys who were all around like 199 centimeters. They're a little bit more leaner types. Like everyone was kind of looking at like a Floyd Burmeister, that type of player. But I feel like they're going for that more solid body type guy. Like I've referenced it with Tristan Sherry, Lloyd Meek, this sort of gorilla type ruck that still sort of gets after you, is a bit nuts, a bit crazy, and just sort of like attacks it really hard.
Mate, I think that's fair. It's going to be interesting, like, because I feel like Essendon have really nailed it. Like, really nailed it. Bit of love for you in chat as well, Dylan. Everyone's shocked you haven't got in the draft.
I mean, I went for it. I applied.
We should have tried to petition for one of us to get picked up. I do like the way as well Teresa has described the end of every one of my first dates in university, pregnancy and smelling like STIs. You've taken me back, Teresa. Thank you very much. Well, before we go, I want everyone on the PommyInOz channel, make sure you go and give Hayden at the Footy Yarn. His link is in the description there. Make sure you liked and subscribe. Does some great content, particularly down in the waffle. And you know what you Victorians are like. You don't believe there is another state other than here. I know you are. You treat the WA guys like they're from Wales, as if you're English. And make sure you're following Dylan Alexander as well. Gentlemen, before we end the stream, Hayden, what have you got coming up over at the Footy Yarn, mate? What exciting stuff can the people find?
Well, it's in a bit of a snooze right now. Actually, you got me at a bad time. The state champs is coming up. I've done all my work for the pre-season already, so I'll have, I think this week coming up actually, I've got to double check a few boys who are really exciting for WA. I'll be getting on with them, playing a game of pig, just having a chat with those boys, and then it's really just waiting to see how this national champs works out. As you boys have both know, it's a real dictator of the draft. You know a few guys going into the champs, but there's going to be 10, 20, 30 names who really throw their names up draft boards. So just waiting for that for the time being. So, yeah, if you can ask me that question again in another 2 months, I'll have a much better answer for you.
I thought you handled it like a pro, though, mate. You absolutely plowed through it. I love it. Dylan, all the guys and girls know who you are, but what are you doing for the next week? Because you always throw something at us.
Yeah, I'm doing something similar to what Hayden's doing, just hanging around for those national champs. The only thing I'll be doing is playing a lot less pig, unfortunately. So I'll be more just watching the games, trying to get some reviews out. I wouldn't mind actually live streaming a couple of the interstate games. So probably not the right forum for it, but I don't know what you guys are doing. We can probably hook something up in that regard, do some of the national champs.
Make that happen. I mean, as you know, I'm desperate for content. So,
Exactly.
Utilize me. I'm here for you.
Yeah, well,
Awesome.
I'm keen to do that as well if you want. I'm sure the chat will. It was something we talked about a couple of weeks ago in my live chat that we wanted to do some watch-alongs for the draft. So that could be quite a good laugh. We could take a team or a player each and bore the audience with glazing that they're going to be the next Luke Hodge.
100%. I'm massively keen for that. I just want to say to my audience too, because I'm actually streaming on my channel at the same time, to go and follow the two boys as well, Hayden at the Footy Yarn and PommyInOz.
Yeah, look, if you don't, you're going to die alone. That's all I can say. If you don't do it, no pressure on Dylan's chat. But everyone, thank you very much for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed it. We've covered all these players. We had a lot of fun. Hope everyone watching gets a superstar in this pick. Or don't blame us in 6 months' time when we're talking about them on our needs analysis because you've delisted him. But thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of your week. And make sure you like and subscribe wherever you're watching. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.